Hello, world. My name is Leo, and today we are discussing the Animal Well file. So, this is going to act as my final thoughts video for my Animal Well Let's Play. For those of you who don't know, I played Animal Well on the channel. The link to the playlist will be in the description. And I thought for this one, I would frame it a little bit differently. This is going to be more akin to my review slash discussion type of videos. And I'm going to have a non-spoiler section to start with, followed by a spoiler section, so I can really get into the details of why I feel how I feel about this game. As usual, I have notes in front of me, but other than that, this is going to be mainly off the cuff, so here we go. I want to start by saying that I ended up being a lot more mixed and conflicted about this game than I thought I was going to, which actually really surprised me. Throughout my Let's Play, like when I first started it, I was really loving the game and enjoying my time with it. I was enjoying the world, I was enjoying the puzzles, I was enjoying the atmosphere, I was enjoying the mechanics, I was loving all of it. And then in the second half of my Let's Play, it almost felt like the game became a lot more tedious, particularly in its post-game, and the puzzles became a lot more obtuse, and I'm going to do my best to explain without spoilers how I came to arrive at those feelings. But first, I want to start off with what I've really liked about the game. So, in terms of the aesthetics, I think they're fantastic. The developer, Billy Basso, went with almost like Atari style graphics with VCR lines to give the screen like a very distinct texture, and it looks really good, very stylized. The colors really pop. They managed to get some really vivid colors here, along with some really interesting like smoke and lighting effects. Like, the graphics look old school, but these smoke effects in particular almost look extremely modern and actually like kind of unique compared to other smoke effects I've seen in games. It was really interesting to see and just really cool. Another thing I really liked about the game's aesthetic is how it took advantage of light and shadow. There are several rooms and quite a few different mechanics that will require you to like mess with light or illuminate something in the darkness. And the darkness also helps provide a very unsettling atmosphere to a lot of the world of this game. Speaking of which, this game nails its atmosphere, by the way. Not only with its use of light and shadow, but also like with the animals themselves. All of the animals, from like their animations to how they look to the sounds they make, they almost feel otherworldly in a sense. Like this feels like a world where you do and don't belong at the same time. And the vibe of the animals can vary from like friendly to vaguely imposing to outright threatening. And the way the map is laid out, you never know what's going to be around the next corner. You never know whether or not the next room is going to be illuminated. You don't quite know if there's going to be danger coming. It's all like vaguely unsettling at times, but also at all times it wants you to keep exploring. The world begs to be explored here. And I really loved that. And speaking of how the animals sound, the sound design is also fantastic in this game. A lot of natural sounds were added to the soundtrack, like leaves rustling and birds chirping and random animal noises that you can hear in the distance. The soundtrack, there isn't much of a soundtrack here. It mostly consists of like ambient drones, like instruments holding one single note. And then when there is like actual music besides drones, it's used to really great effect here, either to provoke a sense of wonder or to provoke a sense of eeriness or fear. So I would say that when it comes to all the elements of this game, the aesthetics were probably the biggest thing for me that was consistently good over the course of my entire experience. Like I said, this game nails its aesthetic, its graphics, its atmosphere, its sound design. All of it is just top notch. And yeah, Billy Basso absolutely deserves to be commended for that. Another thing that I really liked, at least in the first half of my Let's Play, was the gameplay. This game is clearly inspired by games like Tunic, and so it features a map that like constantly hides secrets in the walls. Secret passages are everywhere that constantly like loop in on themselves in back into like the main world. This map is extremely dense when it comes to things you can find and ways that you can take advantage of the mechanics at your disposal to solve the game's many puzzles. And speaking of the mechanics and those puzzles, I don't want to spoil much about the tools that you'll be using to solve these puzzles, but I will say that they are very unexpected, but in an incredibly charming way. Like, at least for me, all of the different tools that I would find throughout the game each provoked a very specific, like, feeling in me and are evocative of a very, like, playful and exploratory tone, if that makes any sense. You'll get it more if you watch my Let's Play or play the game for yourself. And yeah, I found it extremely charming. And in addition to that, all of the tools, or like most of the tools that you'll be finding, all have multiple uses. And the game doesn't tell you that, you just have to like figure that out for yourself. So in addition to being charming, it's also extremely intelligently designed, it feels. And then the puzzles are incredibly fun to solve. In the first half. A lot of them will involve like finding secret passages, either through just looking, keeping your eyes on like the corners of the rooms or in areas of the map, or using your tools to uncover hidden areas. There is some like platforming involved. There are puzzles that do have like a logic element to them as well, where you have to like make a certain sequence of things happen to help get you through a room to like a chest or a new area or something like that. It was all really fun and engaging, and yeah, I had a great time with it in the first half of my Let's Play. And yeah, the secrets were super satisfying to find as well. Like this game, I felt like the game never stopped rewarding me for keeping an eye out for secrets. I loved that in Tunic, and I most certainly love that here. And now I want to talk a bit about the flip side, the second half of the Let's Play. Again, no spoilers until the spoiler section, but this game, after you finish the initial wave of puzzles, there is a like post-game kind of thing, and other reviews have mentioned that, so I don't think that's quite a spoiler. But it's in this post-game that I have issues, because first off, I don't know if other reviews have actually played a post-game. Like I know any of the post-game. Like I know that reviewers have mentioned that there is a post-game, and the initial part of the game is excellent. Like I have no doubt that like the first part of the game deserves like 8s, 9s, 10s. But I can't help but wonder if other people who reviewed this game got to this post game before writing their review, and if they had, I wonder if their scores would be any different. Because for me, the post game puzzles were definitely a mixed bag. Some were pretty good and still kept that charm of the initial set of puzzles. Some actually were incredibly tedious and required extremely carefully searching all over the map for things that had been missed, or some surprisingly complex platforming that was just that takes multiple attempts and was extremely tedious for me to nail down. And then some of them are just borderline unsolvable, to the point where I almost feel like some of these puzzles break the logic of the game that was set up beforehand. Because there are some mechanics in this game that, in my opinion, the rest of the game does not set you up properly for. Now, I want to emphasize that this is up to personal preference. A lot of people are going to love the post-game puzzles. They appeal to a niche that I don't think is explored in a lot of games, and I think it's really cool that there are rewards for people who are willing to work through those kinds of puzzles and like think outside the box and try a bunch of different things and work to get those solutions. But in my opinion, going into the game completely blind for the most part, I personally did not feel like the game communicated properly what it wanted for the post-game puzzles. And for me, it ultimately negatively affected the experience. Like, there were some puzzles that I spent a lot of time like running around the map, racking my brain, trying to solve, only to look it up and realize that, let's say, the solution was so far out of my reach that I basically had no way of solving the puzzle without looking it up. And that didn't feel good. And it definitely tarnished my opinion a little bit of the game as a whole. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in kind of relation to this is like the story that this game offers, or like the storytelling and stuff like that. Now, I'm a little bit conflicted on how to approach this as well, because I don't know if it's a spoiler to say to what capacity or to what degree a game has a story or has lore. So what I will say is that this world has so much potential for environmental storytelling. That's actually one of the things that kind of drew me to the game. Was I saw this world and it reminded me of games like Tunic, and to an extent, like, it even a little bit reminded me of Hollow Knight with how deliberate the environmental design looked. And again, it is clearly inspired by games like Tunic and Outer Wilds. I even saw a couple of people on like Reddit comparing it to Rain World. But having played Animal Well for myself and having reflected on my experience, the conclusion that I have come to is that Animal Well does not properly take advantage of any of that potential. And the storytelling, or the amount of storytelling on offer, does not have the emotional depth that those other games have. Like Tunic, Outer Wilds, Rain World, Hollow Knight, and I know Hollow Knight's not a puzzle game, but the environmental design, like I said, at first reminded me of Hollow Knight. all of those games have extremely emotional and extremely visual storytelling. Like, a lot of the lore for what happens in those worlds and a lot of the backstory behind why you're doing what you're doing is told through the environmental design and little details that give you hints on like people who came before and the history that the world has. But Animal Well, in my opinion, does not take full advantage of that, and the extent to which the game factors in story, lore, and environmental design was not satisfactory, in my opinion. And it is just not on the same level as Tunic or Rainworld or Outer Wilds when it comes to that specific element. And maybe that is my fault. Maybe I came in with the wrong expectations for this game. But I mean, I don't exactly blame myself for that because, again, like, you look at this world and it is just brimming with so much potential, and there could have been an amazing like backstory or story overall woven into it with how deliberately it was made, but it just doesn't take advantage of that, and I found that really disappointing. And you could argue, I want to bring this up as well, you could argue that puzzle games don't necessarily need a story or environmental storytelling to be compelling. Games like Antichamber and The Witness come to mind, where those games are a lot more focused on philosophy and morals than they are trying to tell any kind of story. So, to that end, I asked myself as I was reflecting, does Animal Well have this same approach? Does Animal Well have more of a focus on any kind of philosophy through its puzzles and its environment? And I did come to a conclusion. I'll go into more details in the spoiler section, but Animal Well, I think, is intentionally very vague when it comes to like the themes and the philosophies that it's trying to convey, if it's trying to convey any. Because again, like, it's all up to, it can be all up to the eye of the beholder when it comes to that kind of thing. So I think it is, in that way, I think it is intentional. It's like what you get out of the experience will depend on the player and what the experience makes the player feel. And to that end, I think every player, after playing this game, and this could apply to any game, but I feel like it applies to this one in particular, when it comes to what the experience is making them feel, what they are getting out of it, the questions that need to be asked are, is it fun? And is it enough? And for me, I don't know if it is enough, just because I would have loved to have seen some kind of more in-depth story to go along with the puzzles, to kind of give an extra layer of meaning, I guess, to everything going on. Because again, I felt like this world had a lot of potential for some really awesome storytelling, and it just did not take advantage of it. Now, with all of that being said, you're probably wondering whether or not I would recommend this game. Honestly, what I would say is that it's a difficult question, but I think I would recommend it. As much as I was ragging on the post-game gameplay and the lack of storytelling in the world, I think more than anything, the point of this game, and again, it's kind of funny, you could apply this to any game, but I feel like it especially applies here, is I do recommend that you experience this game but only as much as you want to. This game can get very in-depth with its mechanics, but it leaves it entirely up to the player whether or not, like, how far you want to engage with it. At the very least, I would recommend the initial, like, main game. I think that is excellent. I think that is entirely worth experiencing. And then beyond that, it is entirely up to you. And I'd be very interested to see more people's opinions on whether or not it is fun and whether or not it's enough. And to the game's credit, despite all of its faults, well, the faults that I am perceiving in it, it did make me really think about a bunch of different things regarding puzzle games and storytelling, and it did make me feel something, some truly unexpected feelings, and I can at the very least respect the game for that and respect it for what it's trying to do. And that's all I really want to say when it comes to the non-spoiler section of this video. If you are leaving the video at this point, thank you for watching. Please feel free to leave a comment with your own thoughts on what I've said, regardless of if you've played the game or not. And if you do end up checking out the game for yourself or checking out my Let's Play, I really hope that you enjoy it, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts if you come back to this video after the fact. I'm extremely curious to know what other people think about this game. And now if you're sticking around, this is your final warning for spoilers. I will be going over some specifics on what I liked and didn't like about the game. You have been warned. Here we go. So, I really liked the animal boss battles of this game. They were all fantastic. My favorite one was probably the, like, cat wolf or the werecat or whatever that's supposed to be. Having it chase you around the map and, like, having to plan that route from the cat shrine, or from the, like, one disc shrine to the other disc shrine, was a lot of fun, and having to, like, getting to see that play out and, like, work was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. When it comes to the mechanics that I had talked about, the mechanics being centered around toys, I found to be very novel and fun. Like I said, it was very charming to see, like, that the tools you were using were just, like, everyday objects and, like, toys that you would have played with when you were a kid. And then the level of interactivity with those mechanics, and some of the other mechanics, is truly fantastic and feels very inspired. Like, being able to use a pencil and stamps to be able to mark on the map, and there is even a puzzle centered around that, even if that puzzle, in my opinion, is a bit tedious. And, like, discovering the different mechanics for, like, the bubble wand and the yo-yo and stuff like that. Yeah, it just felt really inspired in a way that surprised me, because, like, you know, it's everyday objects. You wouldn't think to be inspired to, like, use these tools, or like, think about these toys in the way that this game makes you think about these toys. And to me, that just felt really cool. And that kind of goes into my theory regarding the theme of this game. And I don't know, I had to think really hard about this to, like, come up with this, because I don't know for sure if this is what the game is trying to convey, but it is my opinion and something I like to do, that, like, all games and, like, pieces of media can have a deeper level of meaning to them. And I can't help but wonder if that in and of itself is almost like the intention of Animal Well, because all of the toys that you use, like the yo-yo, the frisbee, the bubble wand, none of those toys are deep. None of those have any like meaning inherent to them. The only meaning they have is the meaning we give them as kids. And we give those toys the potential to like generate hours and hours of fun. And I wonder if Animal Well is trying to be kind of the equivalent of that for adults, where it's like, it's not deep. There's no story, which, by the way, spoilers, this game does not have a story. And this game does not have environmental storytelling at all. I was wondering if that might be a spoiler or not. So I tried to like dance around that a little bit in the non-spoiler section. I'll just come out and say it here. At least from what I could tell, this game has no story, no lore, none of that. It all just kind of exists. And when I first found that out, and I talk about it in my Let's Play a little bit, it definitely felt like a problem because, like I said, the world has so much potential, and all that potential feels wasted. But I can't help but wonder if that is the intention, because, like, again, the toys that you're using don't have any meaning, except for how you use them to make them fun. So, is this game intentionally not deep? Is this game just meant to be played with and nothing else? Is it just meant to be like a sandbox, an adult sandbox for us to like play in and just experience the puzzles? And again, I present the two questions that I asked in my non-spoiler section. Is that like, if that really is what the game is trying to convey, is it fun and is it enough? And looking at it from that perspective, I actually have a lot more respect for what the game is trying to do if it's going that route. And again, it could be like an eye of the beholder kind of thing where that's just the meaning that I'm applying to it. But this game, this game doesn't seem to have any deeper meaning, but that might be intentional. I don't know. It's just something to think about. I'd be very interested to hear you guys' thoughts on that. But in terms of why I got really conflicted with this game, in terms of mechanics, I think the ball and the wheel should have been cut from the game, honestly. Out of all of the tools seem to have, like, they have multiple uses, they're used in multiple puzzles, all the tools except for the wheel and the ball. They are so situational, and, in my opinion, not utilized enough, that I feel like the game could have benefited from actually having less mechanics. Like, in terms of those, like, just cut those two mechanics out of the game, and cut out, like, I don't know, like, 5 total puzzles that require you to use them, and I feel like you would have had a much, like, leaner experience. I don't think the game would be affected negatively in any way by removing the ball and the wheel. And I feel like the game would have maybe benefited from being just a little bit shorter and having it just be that much more concise. Regarding what I said about the game not properly communicating what it wants for its puzzles, I'm going to play an excerpt from... I had a speech in, like, the second to last recording session of my Animal Well Let's Play, which is, like, part 14 or 15 or something like that. And I'm going to play an excerpt from... I ended up cutting it out because I didn't want that to, like, affect... I wanted to try to give the game another fair chance, but I wanted to play an excerpt from that speech here because it really... I want you guys to understand how I was feeling in that moment. Like, and all of the, like, rabbit puzzles, I just, like, skimmed through them. I made sure to not completely look at the solutions. The majority of them require songs that I'm assuming if you search enough over the map you can find them, or maybe you can't. And that's, like, the thing, isn't it? Like, I have no actual idea how many of those puzzles can be solved without looking it up. with this game and my mindset right now, I almost feel like I have been cheated by someone else out of solving these puzzles. I almost feel like I had to look up a guide. I almost feel like I was deceived into looking up a guide and then realizing that I had no choice but to look up a guide in order to progress. Like, feeling deceived or feeling cheated might be strong words. I don't necessarily know if those are accurate, but those are the best words I can think of right now to describe how I feel. And yeah, like, these puzzles are brilliant. And I get that they are meant to be hard. And the design of the puzzles, like having to look up the 50 pieces or however many it was of the pixel board to try to figure out what the mural is supposed to be, and having to connect your printer in real life, like, all of that is incredibly cool and incredibly creative. And I get having rewards in the game for people who want to work for them, like having a no death run or a speed run. I completely understand that as well. But just, I guess, like, the fact that I had to look that up to find that out, that I am completely locked out of these puzzles unless I start the game over again. And for the, like I said, for the printer puzzle, I literally can't solve it with the platform that I'm playing on, without a guide, at least. So I'm not exactly sure what clips I'm going to pick out, but in case extra context is needed, this speech was given after I found out that the Cuckoo Clock was a speedrunning puzzle, and the Skull Room is a no death run puzzle. And I had spent a lot of time trying to figure out how I could solve those puzzles before finding that out. So having to look that up, and only to find out that I could not have solved that puzzle, and all of that time I had spent trying to solve it was wasted, it really did feel like a slap in the face. And it just felt like, because, like, trying to let's play the game as well, like, having to edit all of that out is time that I am, you know, that's extra time on me. And yeah, nothing in the game had really, like, clued me into where I would need to, like, restart the game in order to complete some of these puzzles. And then I had also found out before that speech about the printer puzzle. Now, granted, I did not know at the time that there was an alternate way to solve the puzzle for people on PlayStation. But again, I feel like the game doesn't really set you up for needing to do that kind of thing for its puzzles. Like, the logic of all of the puzzles up to that point is that all of them can be solved in the game. So all of a sudden, having a puzzle that requires you to go outside of the game, or having a puzzle that requires you to restart the game because you played it wrong, especially puzzles that are so prominently displayed as, like, the Cuckoo Clock. The Skull Room's hidden, so I don't know if I can really say that one, but, like, the Cuckoo Clock is, like, front and center when you enter the door to the right after you finish the main game. And, like, the printer puzzle might not be obvious, but, like, the billboard that has the bunny on it is also, like, very prominent. And I think that's another thing where, like, the bunny puzzles are, for those of you who don't know and are watching the spoilers because you aren't planning on playing the game, the post game, you can find all the Easter eggs, which can be tedious, but I didn't really mind it. But then after that, there's a series of bunnies that you need to find in order to unlock a secret area and a secret mechanic. And some of the puzzle, in my opinion, the bunny puzzles are incredibly inconsistent. If you know how to use the mechanics in the game, some are very easy to find, like the duck bunny puzzle, the clownfish bunny puzzle, the crane spike platforming bunny puzzle. Like, those are relatively easy to find. And then you have bunny puzzles that are like, you have to hook a printer up to your PC, or if you don't have a PC, you need to take a picture of a hidden barcode and then invert it and then scan it on your phone to unlock the solution. Or with the bunny billboard, the pixel board, you need to look at this tiny square that you're presented and then go on like Reddit or Animal Well forums and combine everyone else's pieces that they found in their games in order to get the full picture of what's supposed to be displayed on the billboard. In my opinion, the game does not properly set up or convey the amount of involvement that some of these puzzles take, and I would also say that the bunny puzzles that are easily solved are kind of deceptive, because like, I probably wouldn't have engaged with a lot of the post game if I had known that that was what was required of me. But because I found a few of the bunnies so easily, it kind of lulled me into a false sense of security that I would be able to find the rest of the bunnies on my own just through the game. And it turns out some of the bunnies cannot be solved through the game, nor can they be solved on your own, because yeah, the pixel board puzzle specifically requires like players working together online in like forums to be able to solve that puzzle. And so, like I said, I'm extremely conflicted on it because I know a lot of people like that kind of thing. And I even saw like a post in the discussions on Steam that was like, it makes them sad that people end up not liking the game because something is inconvenient or takes a bit more work to get. And I understand that, and I even said in my Let's Play that I fully respect some of the choices that Billy Basso made. It was an extremely bold choice to include some of these puzzles in the game itself, especially ones that are so prominently displayed as the cuckoo clock and the bunny pixel board. But a lot of those puzzles in other games tend to be relegated to just ARGs outside of the game for people who are willing to find them. And I think maybe there's a reason for that. That's probably the better way to do it, just because like that way more casual players that don't necessarily engage with ARGs have a better idea of what to expect for the rest of the puzzles. Because yeah, like I said, finding that out, it was a bit of a rude awakening, and it really, as much as I respect it, there is no doubt that it negatively impacted my experience and my perception of the game overall. So yeah, that's going to be it for my final thoughts, and my discussion/review of Animal Well. If you made it up to this point, if you watched the spoilers section, thank you for watching the whole thing. Again, please feel free to leave a comment below. I would love to hear your thoughts on anything that I've said. If you do plan on discussing the spoilers, all I ask is that you put them under a read more, like you make it optional. You make it so that people have to expand the comment to read what you're saying, just to protect other people who might not want stuff spoiled for them. And like mark it with a spoiler, like say spoilers if you could. But yeah, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on anything that I've said. How do you feel about the main game? How do you feel about the post game? How do you feel about this game's like themes and like the potential for storytelling? Because if there's one thing that I think this game does really well, it does make for some really interesting discussion on the like nature of games and like puzzle games in particular. And I think that's really cool, and I would love to talk about it with you guys in the comments. And yeah, if you haven't already, and if you liked this video, please consider subscribing, ring the bell, all that good stuff. And yeah, I will see you guys for my next Let's Play or review or whatever it is you want to see me in next. Goodbye!